Paul Morrow here, Smart Financial Lifestyles. Hey, there are some good places to live, or maybe some better places to die. So the topic of this little YouTube video is the best places to live and die in America. If you want to follow us, by the way, and get a list of these, you can just subscribe to our channel here below, mash that button, and join our mailing list. So there's a lot of states here in New England that get onto this list, but we've been asked this because of some of the meetings that we've been doing. There are 17 states in the United States that charge either a death tax or an estate tax. A death tax is basically the tax when you get money in, you inherit it from someone who's dead, and you pay a tax. An estate tax is charged to the estate of the decedent. So like in the great state of New Jersey, you have both. So a person dies, tax in their estate. A person who gets the money, that's an inheritance tax to them. So there's two kinds, right? So there's 17 states that have a lot of these taxes. So let me just say, there's a very famous story about this in the greater Boston area, and it has to do with the Kennedy family, which you know is from Boston. And Jack Kennedy lived in Brookline, Massachusetts. His mother Rose was there pretty much all of her life. A scion of Boston culture, you know, funder of a lot of great things in the greater Boston area. Okay, there is a sort of a rumor that late in life, Rose decided to jump on an airplane, and some around here would say that maybe she didn't even make it to Florida, but she died as a resident of Florida. So what does that mean? You can live your life in Massachusetts, you can live your life in New Jersey, you can live your life in these expensive states, but if you're going to die, there's a couple of states that are really good to die in. I mean, it sounds corny to say this, but if you die in Florida, there is no death tax. So you can make a ton of money, and you might see this with the tech bros and the tech billionaires, right? So they're in California, they make $100 million, they take their entire life, they move it to the state of Florida or Texas, they die there, and they pay zero. Now that's a huge win, because in some of these states, the tax is as much as 10%. So if you want to basically plan out where you're gonna live out your retirement, that's one thing. The second thing is you have to pick your final resting place with maybe some taxes in mind. Now, this doesn't affect families of modest means. And I will tell you, in most cases, even here in Massachusetts, where we have a pretty aggressive tax culture, the amount for an individual in Massachusetts before the tax hits them is $2 million. And with some progressive planning, with a good estate planning attorney, a couple can get a trust for the husband, a trust for the wife, and get $4 million. So if you can get $4 million for free, that covers actually a lot of the families in Massachusetts. But if you happen to be successful and you've built up a bunch of net worth, you could raise your family here in New England and Massachusetts. You can go to great schools and great colleges and all that. However, when you're picking your final resting place, you know, it might be Miami, or it might be Austin, Texas, or it might be Denver, Colorado. It might be a place where they don't charge an inheritance or a death tax. So we have a list of 17 states. It's very interesting that the 17 states that have taxes are largely a lot that are concentrated here in New England. You know, of course, we have Rhode Island and Massachusetts and Connecticut, right? We have, you know, pretty high tax brackets in those states. I was just in Canada, and we had this discussion of tax reality. I'm going to actually do a little video about that in the future. People think that it's terrible, but it's really actually not quite as bad as here in many cases. So we have a whole bunch of places that you can migrate to that don't have taxes. And we have a lot of states where you have a tax, but it's avoidable with legal work. Now, this is part of our Smart Financial Grandparenting book, is that even if you live in a state and it's got a tax burden, it just means that you need to meet with and take the advice of an estate planning attorney to legally avoid the taxes. So you can legally avoid the taxes, that's number one, or you can actually arrange your estate to pay the taxes for about 10 cents on the dollar. What does that mean? That means that if your family has $1 million tax bill and you don't want to move from Cape Cod, you love it there, that's where you're going to live out your life, you can arrange with some planning to have that $1 million tax bill paid for about $100,000. That's called tax leverage. So if you're going to be doing tax planning, let's be sort of realistic about this. I know that some people who have families that have deep roots, again, in places like Cape Cod, Massachusetts, or in Connecticut, they're not going to want to move. They're not going to want to spend the end of their life in some place that's tax-free just to save a few bucks. So I want to encourage you to reach out to us. If you want to be put in touch with a smart financial estate planning team, you might have seen some of them on our webinars that we do. If you work in conjunction with a financial advisory team and an estate planning team, you can eliminate or reduce the taxes in some of these states dramatically. And I would say that if you're a New Englander especially, this is a topic that you ought to pay attention to. It's actually chapter 4 in Smart Financial Grandparenting. If you want to leave more money to your children and your grandchildren, a little investment in something like an estate tax plan can have a huge rate of return. You can invest a few $1,000s and save hundreds of thousands. It's a massive ROI. So you don't have to move to Arkansas. You don't have to move to Louisiana. You don't have to move to a place that you don't like. Right? You can actually do smart tax planning exactly where you live. So if you want the list of the 17 states that have estate or inheritance taxes, reach out to us. You can ask those questions below. You can send us a little email or hit us up on our website, and we'll be happy to help you. And I'm Paul Morrow. This is just part of the art of being smart. Thank you.